watch over your soul, guiding every step along the way. May you hold deep in your heart the love God is giving you every day. May the light of heaven above reflect in your eyes, so you see all the beauty in the world. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Live all the days of your life secure in the arms of the one above. May he look upon you with favor, granting everything that you're dreaming of. May mountains offer a path as you stroll along. Fill the valley so you can cross with ease. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Here's your part. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Try that. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Try it, everybody. I need you because I'm singing something else. Shalom. I'll sing one more time with you. Shalom, shalom. You guys ready to go on your own? Try it once on your own. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Keep going. Wherever you may go, take this special prayer. Share the love that you've been given everywhere. And long after we're gone, this blessing will live on, as it has throughout the generations. Together, shalom. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shalom. Sorry, obviously like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I mean, he didn't mean them, but he meant like, you know, people of depth and worth, like people of values, people who would last longer than, you know, as long as their body looks tight, you know. Those are the ghosts. Those are the ghosts. You know, as long as you throw a good touchdown pass, you're a hero. You don't anymore? Okay. A couple Gillette commercials and you're done. Did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts? And all the people live in the city. Hot ashes for trees. We trade the beauty of the world. God created this abundant world full of nature, and we all live in cities. You know. When's the last time anyone saw the stars in Brooklyn? You know? Hot air for a cool breeze, cold comfort for change. And did you exchange or walk on part in a war for a lead role in a cage? And you open up the Torah, and the Torah says right at the very beginning, I created you in my image. An infinite, awesome being. You were created in the image of an infinite, awesome being. And then goes on and tells the whole story, and eventually it gets to the greatest leader who ever lived, who seemed to know the most about the secrets of creation than anyone ever met, because he got shown everything at Mount Sinai. I mean, it was a bit of a freebie, but he definitely got to know the most. And led in a way that I think if anyone thinks of the greatest leader of history, I think everyone directly goes to Moses. And the Torah only tells us one thing about Moses' character in the whole Torah. It tells us one thing. It was when someone spoke badly about him. And everyone's wondering, what's the leader of Israel going to do about this lady who spoke badly about him? And the Torah just says one thing, and we finally find out something about Moses. It says he was the humblest of all people. Period. That's it. Humblest of all people. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. What's he going to do to the lady? Nothing. In fact, because she spoke badly about him, she wound up with a skin affliction and therefore had to leave the camp. And what Moses said is, we're going to wait for her. Normally, we just let them straggle. You know, they just kind of walk outside the camp. We're not going without her. We'll wait till she's healed. She comes back in. Then we'll travel. We're going to wait for her to heal, which is not normal policy. Anyone who got that kind of affliction and had to leave the camp, you know, so they followed the camp. Not for her. We're waiting. Because Moses was nobody. He was no one. He was still that child. The child inside him was still alive. He didn't care what anyone thought. And he had inherited the kingdom of Egypt. He was the prince of the king of all of the whole civilized world. Because at that point, Egypt was the whole civilized world. All the power was there. And here he was, an Egyptian prince dressed in Egyptian clothing with an Egyptian name. Moshe is Egyptian. With an Egyptian name. Speaking Egyptian. Raised in Egyptian. Then he just goes outside and he sees he knew he was Jewish, but he sees a Jew getting beaten by an Egyptian. And he takes out the Egyptian. Kills him. He's willing to let go of all of it because there's no him. There's no one there. There's just what's right. How many times have we in this classroom, and those watching this on a screen, how many times have we done something that was below our standards so that people would think higher of us? Because that's what people were doing. That's what was cool, that was what was in, that was what we were up to. How many times have we lowered our standards so that people would think higher of us, which means how do we think about ourselves already? Low. Moses could have turned a blind eye. Most of us probably would have. But Moses says, I don't care. I'm no one. This is wrong. I'm stepping up. I'm going to do something about it. And Moses is not even the best guy for the job. Forget the Torah from Mount Sinai and being the leader of the Jews, because the Torah makes it clear that he has a serious speech impediment. Not going to be a great spokesman with Pharaoh, and not necessarily the guy to lead the Jews out of Egypt and across the desert. And yet he's exactly who God chose, because he was no one. No one is the happiest you've ever been. No one is the goal. And no one is where your real greatness happens. That's where your real greatness happens. Because then you'll try and try and try again. Because it's not you who fails. You'll never stop. You'll just keep batting away. It means you'll do the right things no matter what the rest of the world's saying to do. You're not going to be looking around to see whether anyone agrees, in what you're doing. You just do the right thing, And it means that you'll be, that you'll say what needs to get said. You'll be self-expressed. Say what needs to be said. Stuff like that. Clear? So how do we do it? How do we become known? How do we have the courage to be known? How do we get to the headspace of being created in the image of God? How do we do that? Go find the no ones and hang out with them. No ones meaning people who are realize they're made in the image of God and they're awesome. They're amazing. Like, you understand that's what we're talking about? We're talking about people, like, go hang out with the people who get that they're awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, because environment counts for a lot. We generally go with our environment. So find a bunch of people who are like coming from this like image of God place, like that's where they generate from. They generate humbly. Okay, very good. I think what our question really is, how do we disassimilate? You understand? How do we disassimilate from how we know ourselves? Okay, so that's cool. Hanging with knowing people. What else? So you're saying, like, find out what you're actually supposed to. Oh, that's a good one, right? Because everyone tells us we're supposed to be like running some gerbil wheel, to like, because you got to make a living, because you got to eat, because you got to sleep, you got to put a roof over your head. So we just go do it instead of actually spending the time and effort investigating what it is we should do. Yeah, that's a good one. That's good one. You know what? Let me tell you a quick story that I love. An archer. Did I tell you the story of the archer? There was a king was traveling with his men in the forest, and he, you know this one. You know this? King was traveling with his men in the forest, and they keep seeing these bullseyes, like meaning they see a target, and they see an arrow right in the bullseye, like right in the bullseye of every one. And so the king says to his men, like, find the archer. I got to meet him. I got to find out what's his secret. So they finally bring him this archer. And they ask the archer, what's your secret? Like, how do you always get that perfect shot? And the archer says, it's very simple. I take back my arrow. I aim at the tree. I release the arrow hits the tree. And then I take my paintbrush and I paint a target around it. But is it not true in our lives? Like what do? We go for something. If it doesn't work, we hit our heads on the failure ceiling, on the glass. Yeah. So we immediately go and we go try something else. And if that fails, we try something else until we finally find some kind of path of least resistance. And when we find that path of least resistance, we paint a target around it. And say, oh, that's what I really wanted. I mean, that's how most people date. I mean, how many of us stayed in stupid relationships because someone said, I love you? In a dumb relationship that was never going to last, but like, at least she loved me. I remember I was in this class, it was packed like this, And a guy in the back of the class says he's engaged to a Gentile. And I'm just, the class is not about intermarriage. I'm just on my way to make a point. He's like, he announces to the whole class that he's engaged to a Gentile. I'm just like, what did you say? And he's like, I'm engaged to a Gentile. And I said, do we have to kill her? And he says, you'd have to kill me first. I said, so you love her? And he's like, with all my heart. And all the class is like, oh. And I'm just like, you know? And so I come and I approach the guy. He says, oh, you love her, huh? What do you love about her? And he gives me 9 items. I don't even know if I can repeat all the items, but he just nailed it. You know, one after the other, you know, like she makes him feel handsome, and she, is there an E? Yeah. And she cooks for him, and most importantly, she loves him, right? Cleans. She makes him feel smart, and she makes him feel smart, and she also whatever. He goes on and on. 9 things. And so I asked the class, I say, it sounds like love. Should he marry her? And several guys blew it and went like, yeah, man, he should marry her. You know. And then I came back up to the board and I put makes me feel like I'm handsome. Not that he is. And cooks for me, loves me, makes me feel smart. I just 9 me's all over the board. Who does he love? Himself. And the truth is, the answer really is that he hates himself, and she's the Band-Aid. Meaning he's got a 50-stitch wound that's wide open. It's a gash, and he's got a little butterfly Band-Aid over it. How long is a butterfly Band-Aid going to last in marriage? 5 years, maybe. These days, now that personal growth seminars are like such big, like they're the biggest seminars in the world today is personal growth. Maybe that's why marriages are ending so early now, because what happened was when the divorce rate hit like 60%, so they're watching if the numbers increased, and the answer is they didn't increase. It stayed there. It's just that they've come down earlier, meaning people are getting married, people are getting divorced quicker after their marriages. Same number, just quicker. Because what happens after a while, he starts loving himself because he does whatever work that I said, what's our work? People go to seminars, do their work, and realize they really love themselves. They look across the bedroom and they're like, who's this? Who is this lady? You know? Or she's like, who is this guy? Once you love yourself, you can really give, and until you love yourself, all relationships are usury. You'll give to get love. You'll call your parents on just that day. You notice you call your dad sometimes, your mom other times? Because there's different kinds of love you need at the different times, you know? So you call them, and you have certain friends you call for that kind of love, and there's all kinds of love. But when you love yourself, you actually call to see how they're doing. Oh, no, I test guys all the time. I'm dealing with a lot of people getting engaged. I always ask them, they have to describe her. If they describe themselves, they're busted and they're not ready to get married or date. And if they describe, because dating's the worst thing you can do until you love yourself. Dating is how you create like heavy-duty scar tissue on your heart that gets in the way of your marriage. You understand? You don't want to show up with like a used heart. Just like, you want a used car or a new car, right? So dating's how you show up as a used car into marriage. You know, because you're just like, everyone admit it in this room. Everyone admit it. You ever gave your heart to someone and it didn't work out? Have you ever given your heart again in that way to anyone else? No. It's crazy. Dating's the most dangerous thing you could ever do for marriage. And it's amazing. We've been brainwashed to think that dating, this is what I'm telling you. Remember as I started this course, I was saying we're here to get our heads on straight, our Western brainwashed heads on straight. Dating is the most dangerous thing you could ever do for your marriage. And yet we've been brainwashed to think that we're supposed to practice somehow. You think there's practice for the heart? I remember the first time I was in love. First time I gave my heart to somebody. Oh, how much I wish that was who I'm married to. But I was 12 years old. I don't even know. I don't know what her name was. I'm serious, I don't even know. And 12 years old, I came home like drunk from school that day. And I was like, I hadn't been drinking. I had been drunk, I was drunk with love. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's a feeling you get when you give someone like everything. Like you just let yourself go totally into someone else. And it's like, it's a buzz, like amazing, amazing buzz. And it would last forever if they hadn't thrown us, kids to the wolves like they did. But anyway, so I come home drunk with love, and my parents see me and they're like, "Whoa, what happened to you?" Because I was just like, I said, "I'm in love. I'm in love." I only went through puberty when I was 15. So I'm in love. And they're like, "Oh, marvelous. That's great." And my parents looked at each other like, "He's experimenting." And I'm just like, experimenting. This is it. This is forever. And anyway, I called her a couple days later, and I waited 2 days just to give her a little space from all the feelings, and let her digest it. And I called her up. You can imagine how that phone call went, Like, "Hey, it's me." It's like, "Who's me?" And I'm like, "It's Yom Tov." And she was just like, "Who?" I'm like, "Your boyfriend." And she's like, "I don't have a boyfriend." And I'm like, Tuesday afternoon after school?" And she's like, "Oh, Tuesday." I'm like, "No, Yom Tov." And she's like, No, I'm going out with someone else now." And I'm like, "What? This must be a mistake." I checked on her name, which I don't even remember, and it was the same, Lila Tov. Yeah. And anyway, I was knocked out. Raise your hand if you know what that feels like. Yeah, I was knocked out, dead, and the rest of you are lying, okay? And and so I'm just knocked out. And anyway, my parents came home that day in the evening, and they see me I can't get off the couch. I'm stuck. The kitchen's 100 miles away from where I'm sitting. I can't move. And they're like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "She dumped me." And they look at each other and goes, "He's experimenting. His first heartbreak." And I'm just like, atomic, the automatic weapon. That's why those guys blow up those schools and stuff. What are we supposed to do? And no wonder everyone only figures out how to get married when they're 38. And if you're a girl, you're freaking out because just your fertility days are on the other side. And if you're a guy whose heart's been I don't know, in a bowl full of razor blades for the last 20 years of dating. And every girl that you're dating's heart's been in a bowl full of razor blades for her last 20 years of dating. And what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to ever choose one? And so the worst thing you could ever do is date. Until you love yourself. Once you love yourself, date. Because you'll be a great judge of character. Because you actually love the person rather than yourself. You surround yourself. I had a guy who did my seminar a couple years ago. He flew in from Manhattan in the Possible Use seminar. He came in for the seminar, and he called me a year later. He said he made 3% more money this year. I'm like, "I'm so sorry." He says, "What do you mean you're sorry?" He says, "That's $80 million. And I'm like, "Whoa." I didn't realize what kind of volume this guy was dealing with. I didn't. People come into the seminar. I don't always know who's there. So he's like, it was a miracle. I said, well, what'd you do? He says, well, I called you to tell you about it, but I wanted to wait till the end of the year to really confirm it. And it's confirmed. He says, about halfway through your seminar, I realized that I'd been hiring people who make me feel smart. I have to run a lot of board meetings. I have to stand in front of a lot of people, all the time, a whole executive staff. And I was uncomfortable. And so I hired qualified people, but made me feel smart. And I flew back from your seminar. I gave notice and fired my entire executive staff. And I rehired top-level people. Now I barely speak at the board meetings because there's only so much I have to say compared to them, and I just sit there humbly and listen. And we made a totally unexpected 3% just because they were so good that they found all kinds of little spots we were hemorrhaging as a company. And they just immediately just buttoned it up. But it's going on all the time in all kinds of aspects of our life. I'll give you another hint how to do it. Get a Rebbe who loves himself. Find a Rebbe in your life, someone to guide you in the Torah world who really realizes how great he is. And just go see him once in a while, especially when you're making big life decisions. But spend time and go to him for Shabbos. Watch the way he works. Watch the way he talks to his spouse. Watch the way he talks to his kids. And by the way, it could be a woman. Find a holy lady who's just so holy and just cleave to her. That's another great way. And I have a class online on YouTube called Finding a Rav. If you go on YouTube, Finding a Rav, it's an hour class, just how to find a guide for you, a Jewish, like a rabbi guide, and how to find a Rebbe for you. And the most hardest, but probably one of the most effective I've ever seen is to get involved in the personal transformation movement, which I've never seen anything quite like it. And to the point where I run my own course. So, is get yourself into it. I don't care if it's books, CDs, whatever it takes. If you go in my bathroom, it's packed. Because outside the bathroom, I only read Torah. I only read Torah, Talmud, Mishnah, Shulchan Aruch, the prayer book, Chumash. But if you go in my bathroom, it's like a stack of books. We actually have a whole other storage area for, I just comb the personal development books. So I have my Rebbe, who's my Hasidic Rebbe. But there are people who have really learned how to scrape, to scour the self-image, to get rid of the darn thing so you can get to the joy of your life. And I myself, I trained for many years, and it's amazing this is playing right now on our Kotel stereo system. You know what they're saying? They're saying it's a great mitzvah to be joyous, always, which is what this class is about. The joy is on the other side of that box, on the other side of the cage we call self-image. Anyway, but I trained and running for 12 years now, 3,000 graduates, this kind of work. And I think I'm finishing a women's seminar tonight. Last men's seminar this season is actually in 2 weeks. January 26th for 7 days, 6 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. 4 hours a night. And it's blow your mind what happens in there. But just I have to tell you, if anyone wants to try it, don't expect all the Jewish stuff that you hear in Aish, because it's a separate thing totally. There's nothing to do with Judaism. There's being Jewish and there's being Jewish. Okay? It's called the possible you, not the possible Jew. Okay? You want to learn Judaism? I'm here at Aish. We got classes all day. This is called the possible you. It's about you. And how to really get to how awesome you are. Anyway, but that's intensive. You have to be psychologically stable. You have to have no history in any crazy stuff. Or, you got to come in strong to get ripped down like that. to be able to like emerge and what you're basically doing is giving birth to yourself. And so you got to come in like strong enough to have it all ripped away so that you can just, by the third day, you like look in the mirror and you're just like, who the hell are you? You know, like you're just looking in the mirror and going like, hello? You know, like, who is this? But then there's 3 days left. And those 3 days are birth. That's birth. It's 12 more hours of just giving birth to ourselves. Which is really no one, you know. But it's amazing when you're no one. Oh my gosh, and people start dancing, you're doing backflips. When you're known and there's a funeral, you're the one crying your eyes out. And people are like, how'd you know him? I didn't know him. Why are you crying? Because it's a funeral. Hello? Like, because I was touched deeply. You get resensitized to life. And then you can become what I call the club of the saddest, happiest people in the world. That's the special club, saddest, happiest people. Because if it's sad, you cry. When it's happy, you're happy. Just totally, you become like Moshe. You become a vessel for whatever's happening. So if it's a Purim party, you're like going crazy. And if it's Tisha B'Av, the day of the destruction of the temple, a full day fast in the middle of the summer. If it's that day, we can't peel you off the kotel floor with a spatula from the pain inside. Because you can go there finally. That's what you get when you generate from no one. Is to really be there.